All right, so we're diving deep into the story of Jack Ma and Alibaba.
This should be good.
You want to know how this guy went from like teaching English to building a global empire, right?
I mean, I thought I knew the basics.
Everyone thinks they do.
But wow, this documentary we watched, it's like way more complicated than I ever imagined.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Jack Ma's story, it's like the ultimate example of like never giving up.
Right.
You'll see, I mean, from failing over and over again to becoming like total business legend.
Yeah, I mean, just starting out in 1960s, China, his family, they weren't wealthy or anything.
Right.
But you can tell, even as a kid, he had this fascination with English.
Oh yeah, like listening to Voice of America broadcasts.
Yeah, and practicing with tourists. Like, that's dedication.
That says a lot about him, wanting to connect with like the rest of the world.
Yeah, for sure.
And you got to remember, his path to success, it wasn't easy at all.
I mean, rejected from 3 jobs.
30, including KFC, can you imagine?
Seriously.
Where they were hiring like practically everyone.
Wow.
And even Harvard, he applied 10 times.
10 times. That's wild. I mean, what kept him going after all that rejection?
That's the thing about Jack Ma, he just embodies resilience. He never let those setbacks define him.
That's a really good point.
Never lost sight of what he wanted to achieve.
Makes you think.
It's like it's not just about the challenges we face,
Right.
but how we choose to respond to them.
So true.
That shapes our journey, more than anything else.
Okay, so this guy can't even get a job at KFC.
Right.
But then somehow he ends up founding one of the biggest companies on the planet.
I know.
How does that even happen?
Well, he starts this small translation agency.
Right.
Doesn't exactly make him a millionaire,
Yeah.
but it's like it lights that entrepreneurial spark, shows him he can build something from nothing.
Okay, so that's like step 1.
Then comes 1995, the year that changes everything.
What happened?
He travels to America, encounters the internet for the first time.
Oh, what? And I love this part. He searches for beer online.
Beer, okay.
Expecting, to see all these Chinese brands.
Right.
But there's almost nothing.
Like it's a blank page?
Pretty much. And that's his aha moment.
Like a light bulb going off.
Exactly. He sees this massive gap.
Interesting.
A China-shaped hole in the digital world.
And this is 1995, so.
China had less than 1 million internet users.
Wow.
But Jack Ma, he gets it. This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
He sees this future where the internet connects businesses globally.
Right.
And he wants China to be leading the charge.
Okay, so that leads him to China Pages.
Right. Essentially an online directory for Chinese businesses.
Like the Yellow Pages, but online.
Exactly.
Well, that makes sense, but what were the challenges with that?
Well, I mean, think about the internet back then.
Oh, yeah, like dial-up and stuff.
Functionality was limited. Internet adoption in China was super low.
Yeah, it was still early days.
And to top it off, they get copied like almost immediately.
No way, seriously.
By a competitor, like their whole idea gone.
So another setback for Jack Ma.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call it a complete failure.
Okay.
This is where you see him learning from every experience. China Pages didn't take off commercially.
Right.
But it proved a point.
Which is?
There was a real need for info about Chinese businesses coming from the outside.
So even though China Pages didn't become like a big thing,
Right.
It's like it laid the groundwork for Alibaba.
Exactly. Like a necessary trial run.
Yeah, to refine that vision.
Sometimes those so-called failures are actually stepping stones.
Yeah, leading you to something bigger and better.
And that's exactly what happened with Alibaba.
Okay, so bring us to the birth of Alibaba then.
Okay, so it's 1999.
Okay.
And Jack Ma gets 17 of his friends together.
In his apartment.
Yeah, picture this, right? He's in his apartment, passionately laying out this vision for a business-to-business e-commerce platform.
Like Alibaba.
Yeah, he wants to connect Chinese manufacturers with buyers all over the world.
Right.
And somehow, he convinces them to join him.
This guy's good.
You got to remember, this is Jack Ma,
Right.
He's got this incredible ability to inspire people.
I mean, he truly believed in what he was doing.
Oh, yeah. And he could get other people to believe in it, too.
That's a gift.
And even in the documentary, like through the subtitles, you can feel his charisma.
Totally.
And the name Alibaba, brilliant, right?
Yeah.
From that folk tale, global reach.
Super memorable.
Easy to say in so many languages, instantly recognizable.
Good point.
But the timing was perfect.
Yeah.
China's internet, it was exploding, creating this perfect environment for Alibaba to just like take off.
Okay, they have the idea, the name, the passionate team.
Right.
But every business needs money to get started.
Of course.
And that's where Goldman Sachs comes in.
Yeah. with an early investment of $5 million.
Not bad.
But the real game changer is that meeting with Masayoshi Son.
The CEO of SoftBank.
Yeah, Masa, as they call him. Made his investment decision in 5 minutes.
What, 5 minutes? Come on.
I know, crazy, right? He later said he was swayed by the look in Jack's eyes and an animal smell.
Animal smell. What does that even mean?
Masa is known for his intuition, and his unconventional way of investing.
Right.
He saw something special in Jack Ma.
Yeah.
This raw drive, this determination.
Interesting.
That convinced him to take a chance.
And it paid off big time, right? That $20 million investment from SoftBank eventually turned into like $50 billion when Alibaba went public.
Yeah, incredible return on investment, right?
You wish you had that animal smell sometime?
Yeah, me too.
But before we get to the IPO, didn't Alibaba face a major obstacle when the dot-com bubble burst?
Absolutely. 2000.
Yeah.
All that hype around internet companies, it started fading.
People were losing money.
Investors getting nervous, companies failing left and right.
It was a tough time.
It wasn't just about growth anymore.
Right.
You had to prove you could actually make money.
Which Alibaba wasn't really doing yet, right?
They were still burning through cash.
So what did they do to survive?
They had to adapt,
Okay.
slashed costs, focused on efficiency, figured out how to generate revenue from the platform.
But people were still using it.
Oh, yeah, there's this great story in the documentary.
About?
Jack Ma's restaurant bills were being paid for by grateful Alibaba users.
Wow, seriously?
Yeah, these users, they saw the value Alibaba was creating.
That's amazing.
Even though, they weren't profitable yet.
So they believed in Alibaba and what it could become.
Exactly. It shows the trust they were building, even in those early days.
That's a good lesson, I think.
Yeah, even giants like Alibaba have to go through tough times.
Yeah.
Gotta be willing to adjust to survive,
Right.
prove that their model can actually work in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so they made it through the dot-com crash, but Alibaba's real rise to power, it starts with Taobao.
Oh, yeah, Taobao.
For those who might not know, it's basically their platform for like everyday buyers and sellers.
Right, like the Chinese version of eBay.
Exactly. But launching Taobao in 2003, that meant going up against a giant.
It did.
eBay had already bought EachNet, which was like the biggest player in China's e-commerce at the time.
Huge, like 80% market share, something like that.
Talk about David and Goliath. So how did Taobao even compete? What was their strategy?
Well, they didn't try to beat eBay at its own game,
Okay.
They took a completely different approach, one that really understood, the Chinese consumer.
Okay, so what were some of the key differences? How did Taobao manage to take on such a dominant player?
Well, for one, Taobao was totally free.
Free for both buyers and sellers.
Yep, no listing fees, no transaction fees, nothing.
That's a bold move. How did they make money?
It was a gamble, for sure, but it attracted a ton of users.
Makes sense.
eBay was still stuck with their old model, charging fees.
Which didn't really work in China.
Oh.
So free access was a big draw. What else did Taobao do differently?
They really tapped into the culture,
Right.
eBay's interface was very clean, minimalist, very Western.
Right.
But Chinese consumers, they were used to busier designs, more visual stimulation.
Interesting.
So Taobao went with that.
Makes sense.
Created this vibrant interface, felt familiar to Chinese users.
So it wasn't just about offering the same service in a different language.
No, not at all.
It was like tailoring the whole experience to the specific cultural preferences.
Exactly. And they knew trust was key, especially in those early days of e-commerce.
Right, especially in China,
And that's where Alipay comes in.
their payment platform.
Right. They used an escrow system.
Okay, now I remember when I first heard about Alipay,
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure how it worked. Could you explain that escrow thing a little more?
Sure. So imagine you're buying something online from someone you've never met before.
Okay.
There's always a risk, right?
Yeah.
The seller might not deliver or the product's not what you expected.
Right, right.
With escrow, the buyer's money is held by a third party, in this case Alipay,
Wow.
and the money is only released to the seller when the buyer confirms they got what they ordered.
So it's like having a referee making sure both sides are protected.
Exactly, and that was huge for building trust online, especially back then.
Yeah, when e-commerce was still pretty new.
It was a game changer for sure, a key part of Taobao's success.
So they offered a free service, a culturally relevant platform, built trust with Alipay, and it worked.
Big time.
By 2007, they'd flipped the script. Taobao had 67% of the market share.
While eBay was struggling.
Wow, and eBay eventually just left China.
Couldn't keep up.
That's a textbook example of disruption, right?
Oh, yeah. Alibaba was fast, innovative, totally in tune with the Chinese market.
They really outmaneuvered a global giant.
By understanding the local landscape better.
From those humble beginnings to beating eBay at their own game.
Incredible.
Alibaba had conquered B2B, now they dominated C2C.
What a story.
What was their next move? Did they just like sit back and relax?
Not even close. Jack Ma is always pushing forward.
Right, always expanding.
Remember that billion-dollar investment from Yahoo?
Yeah.
Fueled their ambition to grow even more.
They weren't afraid to think big.
So they diversified.
Okay.
They split Taobao into 3 separate marketplaces.
3.
Taobao stayed C2C for individuals.
Uh-huh.
Then they launched Tmall, which was B2C, for bigger brands and retailers,
So-
and then Yitao, a comparison shopping engine.
So they were covering like every corner of online shopping.
Pretty much.
Wow, talk about market domination.
And then, of course, the IPO in 2014.
The biggest in history at the time.
$25 billion raised.
It's insane. Jack Ma becomes the richest man in Asia.
Alibaba, a global powerhouse.
What a story. This amazing growth, this incredible ambition.
It really is.
And they didn't stop there. They expanded into all sorts of new ventures, entertainment, cloud computing, healthcare, everything.
Alibaba became this huge conglomerate.
It's really a testament to Jack Ma's vision.
Absolutely.
But there's this other piece of the puzzle, right? The Ant Group,
Oh, yeah. Can't forget about Ant.
Alibaba's fintech arm, which includes Alipay.
Their incredibly successful payment platform.
This was another huge success story, right?
Yes.
They were even going to have an even bigger IPO than Alibaba's back in 2020.
Right. Ant was this fintech giant processing trillions of dollars every year.
Wow.
They were ready to make history with that IPO.
Ah.
Things took a pretty dramatic turn.
And that's where the story goes from inspiring entrepreneur to something else entirely, right?
It is.
What happened?
Well, it all started with a speech Jack Ma gave in October 2020.
A speech?
Yeah, he was at this financial forum, and he basically criticized China's financial regulators.
Oh, criticizing the government. That doesn't sound good.
He accused them of stifling innovation, being stuck in the past.
Especially for someone in his position.
It was a bold move,
Yeah.
and the consequences were swift.
What happened?
Days before the Ant Group IPO, Jack Ma gets summoned to Beijing.
To meet with regulator.
Yep, no one knows exactly what was said,
Right.
but the outcome was pretty clear.
What was it?
The IPO halted, Ant Group ordered to restructure, and Jack Ma basically disappeared.
Disappeared. Like
Yeah.
vanished.
It's all a bit of a mystery.
What happened to him?
There were rumors, speculation about where he was, what his legal situation was, even if he was safe. He made a couple brief appearances later on,
Okay.
but he was different.
How so?
Gone was that charismatic, outspoken figure. He was subdued, almost silent.
Wow. So was this all because of the speech, or is there something more going on?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
Some say it was direct retaliation for criticizing the government,
Yes.
a way of showing him and others that you don't challenge the authorities. Others think it was part of a bitter move against China's tech giants.
Okay.
The government maybe got concerned about their power, their influence.
So they wanted to rein them in a bit. So even someone as successful and powerful as Jack Ma, he's not immune.
It's a reminder that in China, the government has the final say.
Yeah.
And when you challenge that, there can be serious consequences.
It's a complicated situation,
It highlights that relationship between business, innovation, and political power.
especially in China.
It's fascinating, really.
So what happened to Alibaba and Ant Group after all this? Did they fall apart without Jack Ma?
That's what we'll get into next. They definitely face some serious challenges, but their stories don't end there.
So we left off with Jack Ma kind of disappearing and the government cracking down on Alibaba and the Ant Group.
Yeah, it was intense.
What happened to those companies? Did they just like fall apart without him?
You'd think it'd be tough for them, but Alibaba and Ant, they're surprisingly resilient.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, these are massive companies,
Right.
deep roots, intricate networks within China's economy.
Yeah, they've definitely been through a lot already.
They've weathered storms before. And while this whole thing shook them up, they adapted, found ways to keep going.
So what kind of changes did they have to make? What were the consequences of the government stepping in?
Well, for Alibaba, there was that record-breaking fine.
Oh yeah, the antitrust violations.
$2.8 billion.
Wow.
Basically, they were accused of stifling competition,
Wow.
using their power to force sellers into exclusive deals.
And the documentary mentioned something about data sharing, right?
Yeah, they were ordered to share data with the government and other companies.
Which was a big deal for them.
Huge blow to their competitive edge.
So it wasn't just a slap on the wrist.
No, definitely not.
It sounds like the government was sending a message.
Oh, yeah, about who's really in control.
Makes you think, was this really about Jack Ma's speech? Or was it more about, controlling Alibaba's power?
It's tough to say for sure. I
Right.
mean, innovation and healthy competition are important for any economy.
Yeah.
But when these tech giants get too big, they can really squash the smaller players.
Sure. And maybe even, challenge the government's authority.
It's a tough balance.
It is. Governments everywhere are wrestling with this, not just China.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what about the Ant Group? I mean, they were about to have this huge IPO.
Right. And then, boom, shut down.
What happened to them?
Major restructuring,
Huh?
had to scale back their ambitions,
Hmm.
align themselves more with the government's vision for fintech.
So less independence.
And Jack Ma even had to give up control of the company he founded.
Wow, that's a powerful symbol.
Shows you the state's power, for sure.
It's crazy how quickly things can change,
Yeah.
especially when you're dealing with politics and big business. So stepping back from Alibaba and Ant, what's the big takeaway here?
Okay, good question.
What does this whole story tell us about, innovation, power, and the state, especially in China?
I think Jack Ma's story is a powerful lesson.
In what way?
It shows that even the most successful entrepreneurs,
The ones who build these global empires disrupt industries.
they're not untouchable.
Right.
In China, the government plays a huge role in the economy.
Yeah.
And challenging the system, even with good intentions, can have serious consequences.
It's a reminder that business isn't just about, profits and markets.
Yeah.
It's also tied to politics.
Especially in China.
So what's next for Jack Ma and his companies? What do you think the future holds?
Honestly, it's really hard to say.
Yeah.
Things change so fast in China.
Sure.
Politically, economically,
Right.
everything's in flux.
Right.
Jack Ma's stepped back, but his legacy is huge.
Oh, yeah.
Alibaba and Ant, they're still major players, but they're playing by a new set of rules now.
Going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Definitely.
This has been quite a deep dive.
It has.
From Jack Ma teaching English to building a global empire and then this dramatic fall.
A real roller coaster.
It's a good reminder that even in a world obsessed with innovation and ambition, the rules can change in a heartbeat. It highlights the complexities of our world, for sure, how economics and politics and individual ambition, they all shape the future.
Absolutely.
And Jack Ma's story reminds us that understanding these forces is key to navigating everything, really.
So what stood out to you the most in this deep dive?
What about you?
What questions are you still thinking about? Let us know, because this is a conversation worth continuing.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us.